time. I'm back. What's up guys, I'm the SNES Geek and welcome to the SNES Geek Show. It's been a long overdue, but I'm finally back with another game review. As for this one, I am actually going to do a remake of a video that I made 9 years ago, coming up in July, holy shit. And it is a review on Croc, Legend of the Gobbos for the Sony PlayStation. And so this game was developed by Argonaut Software and published by Fox Interactive. So this is an interesting to look back at back in the day when games were really only stored on discs and there was no way to actually gain access to them unless you actually bought them. Now this was at a time period before the internet really took off, and when digital games wasn't standard, it's basically they did not exist, and when there was no such thing as free updates to get to actually fix the game in its entirety as time went by. A significantly much more fun time period, because what you got on the disc is what you would get no matter what. And so this game kicks off with an in-game cutscene which is about how Croc got to join all of the Gobbos. As you can see, he was found in a cradle and then he was being played with. He was really running about and just lived life with very cute noises accompanying it. And then when he grew up, then this guy known as Baron Dente showed up out of nowhere. Seriously, how did he get there? That is beyond me. So he attacks all of the Gobbos and takes the king, but thankfully the king is able to send away Croc before any danger actually does happen. So it's now up to Croc to save all of the Gobbos, which was the other way, but Baron Dente will at the same time reaching his lair in several different worlds. Okay, so you will notice something where the first level is actually playing, which is also named The Adventure Begins. Now that is on point, exactly what I like. So you will notice one thing similar to Croc himself, and that is obviously Yoshi, because this was initially meant by Argonaut Software to be developed as Yoshi's own individual 3D game. But at some point they got the no from Nintendo, and then the game was repurposed into becoming the very game that you're seeing the gameplay of right now. So it's a standard 3D platformer like most games from this era, since Crash Bandicoot made such a splash. Do you want to know what's interesting about this game though? It sold continuously the best-selling game in the UK for 3 months straight. That's pretty cool, isn't it? And so the main objective, like I said, is to collect these furry creatures known as Gobbos, as well as collect these very special crystallized things painted in different colors. You need these to complete this game 100%. And so you have a jump and an attack button. The X button is jump and the square button is what makes you attack. It's very basic, and that's exactly what it needs to be. It doesn't have to be more complicated than this. And that should mean that it's a cakewalk to complete and you can just take it on in a few hours, right? Well, for completion, it's kind of difficult. On its own, the game is actually somewhat easy, but there are a few things which unfortunately pushes this away for some people. And obviously, we're talking about the good and the bad. And the first thing to talk about are the controls. No, they themselves are not that bad. Like I said, you jump with the X button and attack with the square button. Now, this was one of the earliest games to actually use analog sticks as is one of its steering mechanics. And that does sound like a good idea, but unfortunately, in practice, this is a somewhat lousy implementation. Sure, it was early, but let me explain. Basically, they are a bit delayed. You cannot simply just steer Croc in one direction. He will automatically smoothly get to that direction. You actually have to be really cautious about not overshooting the direction where you're going in. And in pretty small spaces, it is practically impossible to smoothly steer you in the right direction. It's kinda difficult to actually explain it in its entirety, so you have to play the game for yourself. But just to let you know, the controls are kind of weird. They're not impossible, just kind of weird. So at this point, I hope you notice something which is going to be a recurring theme throughout this game, and that is how often you go from room to room to room to room. Yeah, this entire game is basically go through doors, the game. Now obviously that was due to hardware limitations at the time. For those of you who don't know, basically, instead of trying to make a big open-ended level where you basically travel from point to point to point to point and basically tank the frame rate, instead going through smaller rooms means that the game will be able to actually handle everything that happens on screen. Sure, it doesn't happen very much, but it's a nice touch. It's necessary for it actually make this game run as good as it does. And thankfully it does. There are no slowdowns, which makes this game almost a blast to play. Like I said, a blast due to the weird controls. But of course, it is something you can get used to, so I'm not really complaining that much. It just becomes an annoyance. In terms of the enemies, I think this game could use a few more enemies. Most of them are just Sparrow and Dante's minions, so it's more like firing stuff at you, or is jumping from one point to another. They are somewhat easy to avoid, but unfortunately they're kind of annoying to deal with. I haven't really told you why, but that is how this game keeps track of your health. So basically throughout this entire game you are collecting these very special crystal objects, and once you gain 100 of them you have a life increase. Sadly though, this is like Sonic on the Sega Mega Drive, where you basically lose all of your health if you accidentally get hit. And with how the controls are, and given how the camera touch is a bit wonky, and with the enemies being kind of annoying in certain places, yeah, you'll be getting a lot of game overs probably, as well as a lot of times where you lose all of your rings after gathering so many of them. No, but thankfully the graphics aren't really that bad. All the character models are decent, there's tons of animation and there's tons of liveliness to most of the enemies. There isn't very often that the enemies are just really stagnant, they do basically nothing, which never ever happens. There's always some activity, and they always go after you with a lot of projectiles and blasts. Croc's sense looks pretty decent, and so does these furry creatures, these Gobbos. Overall, the game looks pretty decent even to this very day. And there's even a few times where the graphics really shine, where it looks really amazing. Such as this point right here at a boss fight at a later point. I mean, just look at how shiny the ice is. It's like so perfectly crystal clear. It actually looks impressive even to this very day. I'm impressed. And there are also plenty of points where it does shine. But as a whole, this game uses graphics in the best way possible with the limitations it's got. It has a few shining moments, and when it happens, it's amazing. When it happens, well, the graphics looks alright, like I said. And so, the adventure begins at level 1, obviously. And this is a somewhat easy level. There's plenty of open space for you to practice the controls, learn how they work. So the main collectibles of this game isn't just these crystal things, but it's also these Gobbos. So basically they contribute to 100% completion. Collect as many of them as possible, which is like 5 on each level. Now, if you collect some of the crystals, it turns out that they are in different colors. There are 5 different of them, and if you're able to collect them all, then you will be able to enter a bonus level. Where in this very first one, there's just a Gobbo just waiting for you. And later levels, there's a lot more tasks that you have to perform. Look around it. It is somewhat easy to actually find all of the places where you need to find the Gobbos. But like I said, it does get pretty annoying later on. So this is just a level that is meant to just ease you into all of the basic mechanics. And believe me, there's going to be several annoying moments. So the world map consists of Croc just hovering above each and every level on this little bird thing. And this bird thing is the one that takes you away from each and every level once you have attacked this gong gong. Do you want to know what was common at the time in level-based video games? That every level basically had to be a pun. So each and every level actually does have a pun. Some of them are not that great, some of them are pretty funny, such as this one. Oh my god. It's the musical title. Yeah, like I said, there's plenty of really fun animation in this game, which is very much appreciated. And so, on every third level, there is a boss fight going about, and it's always the same idea with this build-up. So Dante is basically cursing a standard enemy to make it a more ferocious beast. And before that, you will have to actually go through a minor obstacle course, which is based around you collecting as many crystals as possible. But like I said, you only have them away in one hit, and there is no flashing invincibility for a few seconds. If you lose all of your crystals, you have to restart from the very beginning, and there ain't no forgiveness to it all. But just look at how amazing the background is. It's just a really dark red, which really does add to the chill factor of you simply being out at a bonfire with your friends a summer night. It actually looks a lot of fun. I want to go there, even though there is lava balls. The boss fights themselves are pretty easy. They're always based on one thing, and that's just to stay away from their attacks. And when the time comes, when they're standing still, for instance, you have to attack them with your tailspin. It takes about 3 hits to take them down. Of course, when they're standing still and actually is able to be attacked, that doesn't necessarily get communicated really well. They don't react at all. You just attack them and then you have to get away as quickly as possible. So you don't always know if the attack actually did hit. And there is a boss on every 3rd level, so there is always a reason for you to actually prepare for them, which is very much appreciated. My tip for you, however, is to run around in a circle. I did that multiple times, so I was able to avoid their projectiles really easily. And the funny thing is, the ending of this boss fight, you aren't actually killing these bosses. They're actually turning back into their animals, and Croc is really cute about it. It actually is a lifesaver, and then actually this is the main character. Other characters at this very moment would kill bosses, but you don't. They simply turn back into their actual selves since the curse has been lifted. But thankfully, this bird thing is picking you up and taking you away to the overworld, because there's absolutely no way for you to actually get away from here unless it was for him. But you know, I've actually been holding on to this for very long. It is time to talk about the best aspect of this entire game. The music. It kicks absolute ass. Every track in this entire game is very much memorable. Also happy that Ogna Software was able to put out a really killer soundtrack. I mean, just listen to some of these tracks, they're amazing. So yeah, overall, despite the flaws I've been talking about, Croc Legend of the Gobbos is actually a decent game. It is annoying, yes, but that is something that was common practice back in the day. Plenty of PlayStation games from this era were kind of annoying, so this isn't necessarily a big thing. But sadly though, there hasn't really been much from this franchise. There was this game and there was Croc 2 back in 2001. Yes, sadly this is a game which hasn't really been represented that well in most recent times. Of course, there are your fan games that has been made on Unreal Engine, but they're not official. But the option is there and it's nice to have.